Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbat, everybody. Welcome to this week's Kabbalah Shabbat on Zoom. And it is my great pleasure to invite Leigh to give us a Devar Torah today.
Thank you, Stuart. Let me change my own view of myself. Shabbos, everybody. I have to start with an apology. And the apology is that when I came up with the idea of this particular talk, I thought it was going to be a quick 5 or 6 minutes. But as I did my investigations, got further, I realized it was going to be very difficult to do less than 2 hours. So I'm going to have to try to edit bits out and cut it so that it's only 5 or 6 minutes. But some things will remain unexplained, but you have to take my word for it that they're real and they are correct. Okay. This is about, for those of you who are present at Kenton's first day Shavuos lunch and were present for my gate crashing Devar Torah, which I gave, you may remember that I said that in the Torah there were 304,805 letters, which is correct. The most frequent letter is the letter Yod, which has 31,530 letters, and the least frequent is the letter Gimel, which has 2,109. What is fascinating is if you add up all the letters, the counts of all the letters, you actually only come to 304,803. There are two letters different in the count. So what are those two letters and why are they there? In this week's Seder of Beha'alotecha, the beginning of part of the Parsha of the Shishi, the sixth portion, although it starts at Numbers chapter 10, verse 35, the first character is what is known as an inverted nun. In fact, it's not inverted, it's back to front. And two verses later, there is another inverted nun, or back to front as it is. And those two reverse nuns do not count in the character count of individual letters because they're not pronounced, but they are counted in the number of letters there are in the Torah. So why do we have these two mirror image nuns in this particular part, and it's in this week's Sedra? That's where it got complicated. Okay. The two verses that these nuns surround are chapter 10, verses 35 and 36. Verse 35 is the verse Vayhi bin Saharon Vayomer Moshe Kumar Hashem Vayafutsu Oyevecha, which is the verse that's recited when the ark opens before we take out a Sefer Torah to do the laning. Verse 36, which is the second verse, is Uvenucho Yomar Shuva Hashem, etc., which is the beginning of the paragraph of when we're putting that we say when we're putting the Sefer Torah back. So these two verses are in fact used to surround the Torah when we move it literally from one place to another. And that's why these are there. The idea of why is this surrounded by two nuns which are back to front? Oh, that's where it got really, really complicated. Because Rashi makes a comment and says, well, if you want more information about this, you should look in the Gemara, in Tractate Shabbos, page 115, 115b. And what that talks about is a discussion that the rabbinate are having as to these two verses, which contain 85 letters. And it starts a discussion as to whether what you can do, what you need to do when you want to save a Sefer Torah, if God forbid there is a fire. And it talks about that if you're going to save at least 85 letters, then it's worth saving a Sefer Torah. And it can even, on Shabbos, can you break Shabbos to save a Sefer Torah? It goes on for ages, the Gemara, so I'm not going to go any further on that. But the real question is, why are those two reverse nuns around those two verses? The idea is that those two verses are a break in the narrative. And what it is separating is two bad incidents that are occurring with the children of Israel. The section before, that's the end of Hamishi, it talks about the Torah being on the move, that the people have packed it up and are now on their travels. And they're told to wait for the Torah and the Ark to be ready to move with them, but they don't wait. That's the first episode. After this section, it talks about the people are murmuring, ready to complain and curse Moses for doing the wrong thing and whatever. So we have two bad incidents that are occurring one after the other. And therefore, in whatever divine inspiration or by whatever methods, those two verses, which should have been somewhere else, have been placed in that section to separate two bad incidents and stop them coming one after the other. There is another theory, very briefly, that what this does, it breaks the book of Bamidbar into three sections. The bit before this, the two verses, and the bit after this, which now makes 9 books of the Torah. And that's derived from somewhere in Proverbs where it says that somebody built 9 pillars of the Torah. So therefore, this week's Sedra, although with all the stuff that's in it, we have the two mirror image nuns, which are the only 2 letters which are not read out. They're not read, they're not silenced, they're not pronounced, and therefore they don't count in the letter count, but they do count as to what has to be there in the Torah. 6 minutes. One more bit, just as another aside, there is one other letter in the Torah which is also written incorrectly, not complete. But that doesn't occur until the Sedra of Pinchas, and that is the broken vav in the word shalom. And because it's in the word shalom, it is pronounced and therefore is still included in the letter count. So whichever way you want to skin it, there are 304,805 letters in the Torah, of which only 2, which are in this week's Sedra, are not pronounced. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
That's fascinating, Leigh. Thank you. That really is fascinating.
Thank you very much, Leigh. It's always to hear your words of wisdom on this.